The night Keanu stayed behind, the restaurant was almost empty when the clock moved past midnight. The chairs were stacked neatly on the tables. The soft sound of a mop sliding across the wooden floor echoed in the silence, and the smell of fried food and strong coffee lingered in the air. For most people, it was just another diner on the edge of the city. But tonight, for Keanu Reeves, it was more than that. He was not there as the actor people thought they knew. He was not the famous star. Dressed in a plain jacket and a cap pulled low, he had chosen to stay invisible. He wanted to watch, to feel what ordinary people felt when the world was quiet and their struggles had no audience. He sat in the corner booth unnoticed, just another late customer nursing a cup of coffee. As the minutes stretched, he noticed the young waitress. She moved quickly between the counter and the floor, her face pale with exhaustion. Her shoes were worn, her uniform slightly too big, and yet she carried herself with a quiet dignity. She smiled at customers who barely looked at her. She thanked the cook even when he snapped at her. And when her manager told her she had to clean again because it wasn't good enough, she simply nodded without complaint. Keanu's eyes followed her as she wiped tables, collected plates, and finally sank into the booth across the room when the last customer left. Her shoulders sagged, and her hands trembled as she placed the cleaning rag aside. She thought no one was watching, but Keanu was watching. He saw her lean against the window, close her eyes, and fall asleep right there, in the booth meant for strangers passing through the city. The girl was so still, so quiet, that for a moment, it felt like the whole world had stopped. Keanu's heart tightened. Why was she sleeping here? Why not go home? Was she too tired? Or was there something more hidden behind this? He sat there, torn between keeping his cover and reaching out. After all, he was undercover for a reason. He wanted to understand life without the filter of fame. But the sight of her curled up, asleep in the cold light of the diner, stirred something deep inside him. Then the manager came back, a tall man with harsh features. He frowned when he saw the waitress asleep. He muttered angrily under his breath and slammed a tray on the counter. "Lazy girl," he hissed. "Always pretending to work hard. Now look at her, sleeping on the job. She'll never last." Keanu stayed silent, but his jaw tightened. He wanted to speak to defend her, but he knew if he revealed himself too soon, the truth of her story would never come out. So he stayed still, pretending to sip his coffee. But his mind was racing. Who was this girl? What battles was she fighting that no one else cared to see? As the night grew deeper, Keanu made a choice. He would not leave. He would wait until she woke up, and he would speak to her, not as a celebrity, but as a man who understood what it meant to carry silent pain. Outside, rain began to fall, tapping softly on the glass. The world was quiet, but inside the booth of that small restaurant, a story was beginning. One that would test kindness, resilience, and the power of a simple act of respect. And Keanu knew deep down that meeting this tired waitress was not an accident. It was the start of something that could change them both forever. The first conversation. The rain outside grew heavier, drumming against the diner windows like a restless heartbeat. Keanu stayed in his booth, his untouched coffee, now cold, his eyes fixed on the waitress who was still sleeping. The manager had gone back into his office, leaving the girl in peace, but his words lingered in the air like an ugly shadow. Keanu thought about all the times in his own life when people had underestimated him, when they had judged him without knowing his battles. That was why he often moved through life quietly, without showing the weight he carried. He recognized that same weight now in the girl's slumped posture, the exhaustion etched into her face. After nearly an hour, she stirred. Her body shivered slightly from the cold, and she rubbed her eyes, startled to find herself still in the booth. She quickly straightened up, glancing around to see if anyone had noticed. When her gaze met Keanu's, she froze, embarrassed. "Sorry," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean to fall asleep." Keanu offered a gentle smile. "No need to apologize. Looks like you've had a long day." She lowered her eyes, fiddling with the hem of her apron. "Just tired, that's all. It happens." Her tone carried both shame and defense, as if she had learned to protect herself from judgment before anyone could deliver it. Keanu leaned forward, his voice calm, almost soothing. Sometimes being tired isn't just about work. Sometimes it's about carrying too much on your shoulders. Her eyes flickered up at him, surprised by the kindness in his words. Most customers didn't notice. They ate, they left, and they forgot her. This stranger in a plain jacket was different. "You don't even know me," she said softly. "Maybe not," Keanu replied, "but I can see when someone's fighting a battle on the inside." Her lips pressed together as if she wanted to speak but didn't trust herself. Silence stretched between them, filled only by the sound of rain. Finally, she let out a shaky breath. "My name's Lily." Keanu nodded. "Nice to meet you, Lily." He didn't give his real name. Not yet. To her, he was just another man passing through the city. That was how he wanted it. For now. She hesitated, then sat down across from him, almost as if she needed to feel that someone cared enough to listen. "I don't usually talk to customers," she said. "But tonight feels different." Keanu's gaze was steady, encouraging. Sometimes the nights that feel different are the ones that change everything. Her eyes watered, though she quickly looked away, pretending to adjust her apron. "My mom's sick," she admitted in a whisper. "The bills keep coming, and I can't keep up. I take extra shifts, sleep here sometimes because if I go home I lose time I could be working. I don't know how much longer I can do this." The words spilled out, raw and unpolished, as if they had been locked inside her for too long. Keanu's chest tightened. He remembered the countless times he had seen people give everything for their loved ones, sacrificing their own rest and joy just to keep someone else alive. Lily's story was another reminder of how resilience often hides in the quiet corners of the world. "You're stronger than you think," Keanu said gently. "But no one should have to carry so much alone." Her throat worked as she tried to hold back tears. "People don't really notice, they just see a tired waitress. They don't know I go home, and sometimes I sit in the dark, wondering how I'll make it through the next day." Keanu's voice lowered, calm but firm. "I notice." For the first time, Lily's lips curved into a faint smile. It wasn't much, but it carried the weight of a soul that had been starved of kindness. Before she could respond, the manager's office door slammed open. His voice was sharp and impatient. "Lily, you think this is a hotel? You're sitting and chatting with customers now. Maybe I should cut your hours if you've got so much free time." Lily's face drained of color, and she jumped to her feet. "I'm sorry, sir. I was just—" But Keanu stood slowly, his tall frame steady, his eyes calm but unyielding. "She was checking on me," he said, his tone carrying quiet authority. "And she was doing her job well." The manager sneered. "And who are you to tell me how to run my place?" Keanu met his gaze without flinching. "Just someone who knows respect when he sees it and disrespect when he hears it." The diner fell silent, tension thick in the air. Lily looked between them, her hands trembling, afraid things would escalate. But Keanu's voice remained calm, not aggressive. "Kindness doesn't cost you anything," he told the manager softly. "But cruelty always leaves a debt." Manager scoffed, muttered something under his breath, and stormed back into his office. Lily exhaled shakily, relief and fear mingling in her eyes. "You shouldn't have done that," she whispered. "He'll just make things harder for me." "Tomorrow," Keanu shook his head gently. "Sometimes standing up for what's right makes tomorrow a little lighter, even if today feels heavy." Her eyes searched his face, as if she wanted to believe him. And for the first time in a long while, she felt a strange spark of hope flicker in her chest. But she had no idea who the man across from her really was. And Keanu knew that one day soon, the truth would come crashing into her world, changing everything. The storm inside the diner. The next night, Keanu returned to the diner. He had left thinking he might not come back, but something about Lily's eyes haunted him. He had seen pain before, seen people broken down by life, but there was something different about her. It was the quiet strength under her exhaustion, the way she still smiled at rude customers, the way she carried herself even when her world was falling apart. The diner looked the same as always, bright neon lights outside, the smell of old coffee. Inside, the hum of a broken ceiling fan, but the air felt tense. Keanu noticed immediately that Lily's shoulders were tighter, her movements more rushed. Her manager was already in a bad mood, yelling at the cook, slamming plates onto the counter. Lily tried to keep up, her hands shaking slightly as she poured drinks. She glanced at Keanu when he entered, her face softening for a moment before she quickly looked away, afraid of being seen as too familiar with a customer. He sat in his corner booth again, watching quietly, not as a star, not as a man seeking attention, but as someone who wanted to understand her world. The storm began when a group of late-night customers stumbled in. 3 men, loud and careless, reeking of alcohol. They laughed too loudly, slapped the tables with their hands, and made crude jokes at Lily's expense the moment she came over. "Hey, sweetheart," one of them drawled. "You should sit with us instead of working so hard." Lily forced a smile, keeping her voice steady. "What can I get for you tonight?" They listed their orders between laughter, purposely making it confusing, then changed their minds just as she finished writing it down. One of them leaned too close, his voice low. "You'd make more money if you smiled for us a little longer." Keanu's hand tightened around his cup. His instinct was to stand, to intervene, but he waited, watching Lily. She straightened her back and said, "Your food will be right out." She turned quickly, not giving them more than she had to, but the men didn't stop. As she walked away, one of them made a cruel remark about her clothes. Another laughed and said, "Bet she sleeps here too, look at those tired eyes." Keanu's jaw clenched. The truth was they weren't wrong. She did sleep here sometimes, but hearing it twisted into mockery was unbearable. Lily placed their food down a few minutes later, ignoring the comments, focusing only on the plates. But as she turned to leave, one of them reached out and grabbed her wrist. That was when Keanu stood. He crossed the room in seconds, his presence calm but firm. "Let her go," he said, his voice even but carrying weight. The man looked up, annoyed, then sneered. "Who are you supposed to be? Her bodyguard?" Keanu didn't raise his voice. "I said let her go." For a moment the man hesitated, something in Keanu's tone making him loosen his grip. Lily pulled her hand back quickly, her eyes wide, with both fear and relief. "Relax, man," one of the others said with a smirk. "We were just having fun." Keanu's gaze didn't waver. "Fun stops when someone else is hurt," the men muttered, rolled their eyes, but they quieted down after that. They ate their food in grumbling silence. Lily stood near the counter, breathing unevenly. When Keanu walked back to his booth, she followed, her voice trembling. "You can't keep doing this," she whispered. "He'll notice, the manager. And if these guys complain, I'll be the one in trouble." Keanu looked at her, steady and calm. "You don't deserve to be treated like that." Her eyes shone with tears she was trying hard to hide. "Doesn't matter what I deserve. This job is all I have." He wanted to tell her she was wrong, that she deserved more, that life had more waiting for her than late nights and cruelty. But he held the words back. She didn't need promises. She needed someone to believe in her without asking for anything in return. The night passed slowly, the storm inside the diner heavier than the rain outside. When the last customers left, Lily sat in the booth across from him again, her body sagging with exhaustion. "You shouldn't be here," she murmured. "But I'm glad you are." Keanu gave her a small smile. "Sometimes people show up, when we least expect them. Sometimes they stay for a reason we don't understand yet." Her eyes searched his face, curious, almost suspicious. "You talk like someone who's not just passing through." Keanu hesitated. Revealing his true identity now would change everything. So instead, he simply said, "Maybe I know what it feels like to be unseen." Lily leaned back, her expression softening. "Then maybe you understand me better than most." As she spoke, Keanu realized something had shifted between them. This wasn't just about kindness anymore. It was about trust. And once trust began to grow, it could not easily be taken back. What neither of them knew was that this fragile trust would soon be tested in ways neither expected, because in the shadows, someone else had been watching. The secret revealed, the diner was quiet again the following evening, but the air felt heavy with something unseen. Lily moved between tables with her usual quiet grace, but Keanu noticed, her steps dragging more than usual. Her eyes were red as though she hadn't slept at all. When she reached his booth, she gave a faint smile. "Back again?" she asked softly, her voice carrying both surprise and comfort. "Back again?" Keanu replied, his tone gentle. "Sometimes the food isn't what keeps people coming back. Sometimes it's the company." Her cheeks flushed slightly, and she quickly looked away. "Don't say things like that. People might misunderstand." But Keanu's gaze didn't waver. "I think people misunderstand you all the time already." She let out a soft laugh, though it wasn't filled with joy. "You're not wrong." Then her voice lowered. "He cut my hours today. The manager said I was too distracted, that customers complained. But I know the truth. It's because I spoke back once." Her words stung Keanu. He knew this wasn't just about hours. It was about control, about keeping someone too desperate to fight back. Before he could answer, the door opened. A man in a dark suit stepped in, his sharp eyes scanning the room. He was out of place in the small diner, like a wolf that had wandered into a fragile den. Keanu felt a shift in the air immediately. The man didn't order food. Instead, he sat at the counter, pulling out a small notebook. Lily went to serve him, her hands trembling slightly. "Coffee?" she asked. The man nodded but didn't smile. His gaze slid briefly to Keanu, lingering for a moment too long. It wasn't the curious glance of a stranger, it was recognition. Keanu looked down at his coffee cup, his jaw tightening. He knew that look. He had worked hard to stay unnoticed, to blend in, but someone had found him. The man didn't speak aloud, but his presence was loud enough. He was here for Keanu. Later, when the man left without finishing his drink, Lily returned to Keanu's booth, confused by the tension. "You know him?" she asked. Keanu shook his head lightly. "Not really, just someone from another life." Her brows furrowed. "You say things like that, and I feel like you're hiding something." Keanu hesitated. He had wanted to protect his cover, to live these nights as an ordinary man, but Lily deserved more than silence. He leaned closer, his voice low. "I'm not who you think I am. I came here not as just another customer, but because sometimes I need to remember what real life looks like, the simple struggles, the real people." Her eyes searched his face, confusion and curiosity colliding. "What do you mean? Who are you, really?" Keanu's throat tightened. The words stuck, heavy with risk. But he couldn't lie to her anymore. "My name is Keanu." She blinked, stunned, then laughed softly, shaking her head. "Yeah, right. Like the actor?" His eyes held hers, steady, sincere. "Yes." Silence stretched between them. At first, she didn't believe him. But something in his expression, the calm, the humility, made the truth sink in. Her breath caught, and her hands flew to her mouth. You're serious?" Keanu nodded. Her heart raced. All the nights of speaking so openly, all the things she had confessed, she had told them to a man the whole world admired, yet she had not known. Embarrassment and fear flooded her. She stood quickly, stepping back. "Why didn't you tell me? Why pretend to be someone else?" Keanu rose slowly, not wanting to frighten her. "Because I wanted to see you without walls. I wanted to know who you are, not who you thought I was. Fame changes everything. It builds distance. But I didn't want distance with you." Her chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. "But you let me tell you everything. All my struggles. All my shame. How could you just sit there knowing who you are?" Keanu's eyes softened. "Because none of what you told me was shameful. It was human. And it reminded me of something I can't afford to forget. That life isn't about lights, or cameras, or money. It's about moments like these. Real people. Real pain. Real strength. Her tears welled, spilling down her cheeks. She wanted to believe him, but she was afraid. Afraid that this was temporary, that he would disappear as suddenly as he had appeared. "Why me?" she whispered. "Because you're not invisible to me," he answered. The words sank deep, shaking something inside her. Before either of them could say more, the door burst open again. The manager stormed out of his office, face twisted with rage. "Lily, enough," he shouted. "You're done here. I can't have waitresses who gossip and sit with customers all night. You want to keep talking? Do it on the street. You're fired." Lily froze, her face paling. The word echoed through the diner. Fired. Her world, already fragile, seemed to shatter in an instant. Keanu turned to the manager, his expression darkening. But before he could speak, Lily's voice cracked through the air, breaking with despair. "Please don't do this. I need this job. I need it for my mom. I'll work harder. I'll do anything." The manager crossed his arms, unmoved. "Pack your things." Keanu stepped forward, his calm voice sharp with quiet strength. "No, she's not leaving like this." But the manager sneered. "And who are you to tell me otherwise?" This time, Keanu didn't hide. His cap slipped back, the dim light catching his face fully. The recognition hit the manager instantly. His smirk faltered, his eyes widening in shock. Keanu Reeves was standing in his diner, and nothing would ever be the same again. When truth shakes the room, the diner was frozen in silence. The rain outside tapped against the windows, but inside, every sound had vanished. The manager's mouth opened and closed, like he had forgotten how to breathe. Lily stood motionless, her eyes wide, her heart pounding so loudly she thought the whole room could hear it. It was true. Keanu Reeves, quiet, humble, sitting in her booth night after night, was not just another customer. He was the man the world admired, the man she had seen in movies, the man whose name was spoken with respect everywhere. Yet here he stood, defending her. The manager stumbled over his words. You're... Keanu's calm voice cut through. "Yes, but that's not what matters right now. What matters is how you treat people." The manager's face turned pale, then red. His bravado crumbled. I didn't know. "You shouldn't need to know someone's name to treat them with respect," Keanu said softly, his eyes steady. "Kindness isn't supposed to be selective." Lily's knees trembled. She lowered herself into a booth, her mind spinning. Shame mixed with relief, fear tangled with hope. She had told him everything. Her mother's illness, her sleepless nights, her secret of resting in the booths after hours. And all along he had been someone whose life was beyond her imagination. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Keanu turned to her, his expression gentle but heavy with truth. "Because I didn't want you to see a star. I wanted you to see me. Just me." Her chest ached at the simplicity of the answer. The cook, who had been eavesdropping from the kitchen, peeked out nervously. Whispers began to ripple from the corner of the room where the last two customers lingered. Phones slid out of pockets, quiet clicks of cameras breaking the silence. Keanu noticed, and his eyes darkened. This was what he had feared, that Lily's safe little diner would no longer be hers. He leaned close to her. "This is going to change things. Are you ready for that?" Her hands shook as she wiped her tears. "I don't know if I'll ever be ready, but I didn't ask for any of this." His voice softened. "I know, and that's why I'll stand with you." The manager tried to regain his footing, his greed already shining through the shock. "Mr. Reeves, if I had known you were here, I would have given better service. Perhaps we can arrange something. You come here often, people will notice. It'll bring business. I could even give her job back." But Keanu's eyes hardened. "You don't own kindness like a business deal. She doesn't need your crumbs. She deserves dignity." The manager stuttered, but Keanu didn't. Let him finish. "You saw her exhaustion and called it laziness. You saw her sacrifices and called them weakness. And now you want to profit from what you ignored. No. It doesn't work that way. Lily covered her mouth with her hands, her emotions breaking open. No one had ever spoken for her like this. No one had stood up so firmly. The door swung open, suddenly, and flashes of light burst into the diner. Paparazzi had arrived, tipped off by the whispers and photos sent online. Cameras clicked, voices shouted, and chaos spilled into the small space. Keanu, who's the girl? Is she your girlfriend? What are you doing here? Lily froze, her body locking with fear. Her secret world, her fragile privacy, was gone in seconds. Keanu stepped in front of her, shielding her with his body, his voice steady. Leave her out of this. She's not your story. She's a person with a life, a mother she's caring for, and struggles you'll never understand. Show respect. The flashes didn't stop, but Keanu didn't move. His presence, calm yet unyielding, created a barrier between Lily and the chaos. The manager, sensing opportunity, shouted over the noise. She works here. This is Lily, my waitress. She's always here. Take your pictures, write your stories. Lily's heart shattered. Humiliation wrapped around her like chains. This was her worst fear. Her struggles made into headlines. Her pain turned into gossip. Keanu turned sharply to the manager, his voice like steel. Enough. The room stilled. He pulled a billfold from his pocket and placed a thick stack of cash on the counter. That's for every shift she worked here, and that's also for her freedom from you. She doesn't work here anymore. Not for a man like you. The manager blinked, stunned, but his greed silenced him. He snatched the money, his eyes glinting, and slithered back into his office. Lily shook her head, her voice breaking. You didn't have to do that. Keanu turned to her, his gaze tender. Yes, I did. Because you're worth more than the way you've been treated. Her tears spilled freely now. But what happens to me tomorrow? When the cameras are gone? When the money runs out? When reality comes back? Keanu's answer was simple, steady, and full of quiet promise. Tomorrow, you won't face it alone. Her breath caught, and for the first time, hope didn't feel like a cruel illusion. It felt real, standing right in front of her. But outside, the storm of attention was only growing. And soon, the choice between hiding and stepping into the light would come crashing down on both of them. The light after the storm. The diner door rattled against the storm of paparazzi outside. Flashes of light poured through the windows. Voices shouting questions that had nothing to do with truth and everything to do with headlines. Lily sat frozen in the booth, her whole body trembling. She had spent years being invisible, unnoticed, and now, suddenly, too many eyes were on her. Keanu stood tall, his figure blocking the cameras, his hand steady on the table beside her. Look at me, he whispered gently. Not them, me. Her tearful eyes lifted to his. His calm presence was an anchor in the chaos. They'll forget me, she said with a shaky breath. But they won't forget you. And I don't want to be the reason you're dragged through this. Keanu shook his head softly. Being seen with you isn't a burden. It's a truth I'm not ashamed of. Before Lily could answer, the manager emerged again, his greed burning brighter than fear. Let them take the pictures, he said smugly. This place will be famous. People will come from all over. Keanu's voice cut sharp. You had a chance to treat people with respect before cameras showed up. You failed. Fame won't save you from what people will see in your actions tonight. The manager blanched, realizing too late that the world would indeed see, but not in the way he hoped. The crowd outside grew louder, pressing against the glass, hungry for more. Lily's breathing quickened. Keanu reached for her hand. We need to go, but you won't walk out there alone. Together they stood. Keanu led her toward the door, his frame a shield. His head bowed slightly, but his grip firm. When the door opened, the flashes exploded like lightning. Voices shouted her name now. Lily, Lily. As if she had always been someone worth knowing. Her heart pounded. Shame threatened to pull her under. But then she felt his hand tighten, steady and warm. She lifted her chin, not with arrogance, but with quiet strength. Keanu spoke to the crowd, his voice clear. You want your story? Here it is. This is Lily. She works harder than anyone I've seen. She cares for her sick mother and sacrifices her own rest to keep her family alive. She is not a scandal. She is not gossip. She is human. And she deserves your respect. The voices faltered. Some cameras lowered. His words cut through the frenzy like a blade. For Lily, something shifted in that moment. She had been ashamed of her exhaustion, her hidden naps in the diner booth, her struggles to pay bills. But hearing her story told with respect, without mockery, without pity, lit a fire inside her she thought she had lost. The next days were overwhelming. Reporters camped outside her small apartment, neighbors whispered, strangers recognized her on the street. But alongside the noise came something unexpected. Letters of support, messages from people around the world who had lived the same struggles, people who wrote, "You are not alone. We see you." And at the center of it all, Keanu stayed. Not as a savior, not as a man sweeping her away into a fairy tale, but as someone who believed in her strength when she doubted it herself. He sat with her mother, listening to stories from the past. He helped carry groceries up their broken staircase. He made her laugh in the middle of long, heavy days. "I don't know how to live in this kind of light," Lily admitted one evening, as they walked under the glow of street lamps. Keanu smiled, gently. "Then let's not call it light. Let's just call it truth. And truth is something you don't have to run from." Her hand slipped into his, not as someone rescued, but as someone standing beside an equal. Weeks later, the diner closed. The manager's cruelty had been recorded, shared, and condemned. People boycotted the place until the doors locked for good. Lily didn't celebrate his downfall, but she did feel a quiet justice. Opportunities came her way. A scholarship fund, offered by anonymous donors, a small community group helping her mother with treatment, even a letter from someone who wanted to hire her, not for pity, but for her resilience. As for Keanu, he returned to the world that always pulled at him, the sets, the cameras, the endless movement. But now, Lily was not outside that world. She was part of it, in her own quiet way, and every time she looked at him, she remembered the night she woke up in the booth of a diner thinking she was alone, only to discover that sometimes, even in the quietest corners, kindness waits. Sometimes, someone notices. Sometimes, someone stays.